So how did you leave or have that transition then from the being a homeopath into a three principles practitioner?
Yeah, good question. A lot of people in the homeopathic world still ask me that question.
Yeah.
Because I was, I suppose, quite well known in that world. I'd written books, I'd done a lot of teaching, and they kind of like, why would you leave? Because you clearly loved it, which I did. And my answer really is that the same interest that took me into it was what took me out of it. I was just looking to find something that could help in the areas where I wasn't being helpful. And what I saw with the homeopathy is a fantastic healing tool, but I also saw that people came with, let's say, issues or challenges which were not really medical problems as such. Sometimes they did, but often they would come with something that's a life challenge, or they were up against something in their relationship, or they felt like they lost a sense of purpose in life, or these kind of things. I was way out of my depth as a homeopath, and so I had to go looking for other things to try and help people with those things. And at the same time, I was running a training school in homeopathy, and I saw the students were also up against internal things that were preventing them from doing what they wanted to do with the homeopathy. So they would come and study it, and they loved it, and then they'd struggle to get the practice together. Not everybody, but some people clearly would. And I could see that that had nothing to do with the homeopathy per se. It was something that they were bringing to the subject that they weren't conscious of, but it was getting in the way. So I just started investigating that whole area. It's like, what is it that we do on the inside that's either helpful or limiting?
Yeah.
And that became my pursuit during the time that I was in homeopathy, and gradually it led me out of it.
So just thinking about those that were successful and maybe those that couldn't translate their learning into business, what did you see as the difference between the two?
Well, there was a number of different things, but one of the things that was very evident, if I asked people, why do you think you're struggling? They would often point to external factors. So people would say, I remember doing a seminar one time on this very topic, and there was one group of people in the room, and they said, well, it's because where I live there aren't many practitioners, so nobody's heard of it, so it's really difficult to get clients. And there were other people in the same room who said, where I live there's loads of practitioners, there's too many, so there aren't enough clients to go around. So it was the opposite reason for essentially the same problem. And I thought, well, this is really interesting, because both groups were obviously blind to the fact that there was something inside that they were not seeing. That much was clear to me. So then it was kind of getting under the skin of that and seeing, well, what is it in each individual case? And it was typically things, what I started to see was people had beliefs which were not serving them. And they were not conscious that they had those beliefs, but they were living out of them. So, for example, if someone had a belief that it's difficult to make a living as a healer or as a homeopath, a lot of healers have that kind of belief. Or they have a belief that it somehow contaminates the work if you charge money for it. It should be seen as something as an act of service. So they felt uncomfortable with charging a fee. They could treat people till the cows came home as long as it was for free. But as soon as they tried to make a business out of it, they really struggled. So they obviously had some beliefs, some ideas, which they were running up against. So I started to see that there's a connection between internal thought patterns and also how we feel, and then how well we function. I kind of figured that much out, but I was still groping a bit,
And so what was it like then to actually see the penny drop with some of your clients who had that sort of outside in approach, and they suddenly saw that things could be so much different?
Well, it was fantastic, and to me that became the holy grail of my work, because you're right, when the penny drops, you see something shifts. It's a momentary thing, and it may have taken a while to get to that place where that moment happened, but essentially they don't see it, now they see it. And as soon as they see it, things are different. Not only is it different internally, they feel differently about it, but they would suddenly start having ideas that were quite feasible to them, and they'd start implementing them, and they'd start doing the things that yesterday they said were impossible. And that to me was miraculous. And I saw it often enough to know that, well, if that can happen for one person, it can happen for all of us. And in fact, we've all had examples where it has happened. but we don't necessarily understand how it came about or the significance of that.
Just one of the things that you touched on, which I'm curious about, which is as a very successful practitioner, making that transition, and was it a gradual thing, or was it a realization that, hang on a second, I need to make this change?
For me, it was I suppose, reasonably sudden. It wasn't overnight, but it was reasonably sudden. And it was a combination of things. Partly I was getting burnt out by the level of busyness that I'd been operating at, so I needed a break. Yeah. And also, I felt like I'd kind of outgrown the framework within which I was working, and I didn't yet have one to replace it. So my way of negotiating that was just to go, okay, I'm just going to let go of what I know, and then see what comes. Which I've since discovered isn't the commonest way that people do it. A lot of people like to have something else in place first.
Yeah.
And that didn't occur to me. What occurred to me was, well, if you create the space, whatever's going to be needed is going to come into that space. So there was an element of trust, I suppose, but it just felt like the obvious right thing to do.
Yeah. And so for many of the people who watch this video, they will be coaches who are attached to the style of business, and the models which form the basis of their understanding of what coaching is, and will be curious about this, and perhaps why they should maybe consider letting go in the same way as you have, in order to see how the three principles could be something that they could make use of, understand, share with others.
Yeah, but I should qualify what I said, because I wouldn't necessarily advocate to anyone that they should let go of their existing business. If that's what's helping them, in their life and paying their bills and so on, it would make sense to discard that. What we typically need to let go of is just our existing ideas about what our work is based on. That's what I saw was the crucial shift that I had to make. And in a way, you can keep working while you're in the process of having that happen. So for me, the letting go, really the crucial letting go, was the internal one. I had to let go of the model that I'd been basing my work upon, in order that I could see with completely new eyes how you can help people in a deeper way. I would like to think a more sustainable way, and also a way that takes less of a toll on you as a practitioner. So that was also a criteria for me, because I knew that what I'd been doing up until that point was burning me out, and that didn't bode well for my long-term well-being. So I thought, if I'm going to be able to serve people, which is what I want to do, I love this work, I need to be able to be healthy doing it, to bring my best self to it. And that became my pursuit, and I feel now very clearly that the three principles offers that better than anything else that I've come across. It offers you the opportunity to find, first of all, a way to work with your clients, which is actually more helpful, probably, than whatever you were doing before. And it's going to help you not to overinvest too much of yourself in ways that are detrimental.
So if a new client was to come to see you, how would you introduce the three principles and have them use this in some sustainable way to live their life differently?
Well, I get a mix of clients, so it depends. I mean, the first thing is to establish what do they know already, if anything. So if it's somebody who comes who doesn't know anything about three principles, they've just heard about me and they want some help. I just want to know what they want help with. That would be a normal coaching conversation. How can I help you? What is it that you feel you're up against? And then in that conversation, I would be asking them, what do you feel are the reasons why you're up against that? Getting a feel for what's this person's worldview, what do they think are the causes and the factors and so forth. And that would then form the basis for me to start to introduce the three principles. Really is just giving a person a fresh perspective. So it's not asking them to do anything different, it's just opening the possibility that they could see something about their self or their life situation they haven't seen before. That's all it is. Now if someone comes who's got an existing background in three principles, and I do get clients in that category, it's more of a kind of educational role. And you know, really, those people, they just want to see it deeper. And it's like that with people. You know, once you've got a glimpse, you kind of like, well, this is good. You know, what else is there? So I love working with those kind of clients as well, because they you know, I don't need to sell 3 principles to them. They're sold already.
Yeah.
They just really want to know, well, you know, it's been fantastic in my relationship with my partner. What can it do with my kids? You know, what can I do with my work, etc., etc. So then we explore that together.
What sort of areas have you experienced where the 3 principles has shown some real benefits?
In my own life, or working with clients, or both?
A bit of both, really.
A bit of both, yeah. Well, for me, I mean, personally, first of all, it certainly satisfied those criteria that I just mentioned. It enabled me to work with people in a way that felt authentic to me, wasn't draining for me personally, enabled me to really work in what I would call in real time with clients, which is what I've always loved doing, where we're not spending a long time going into things which are no longer real and true in their life. And it's funny because a lot of clients, let's say particularly ones who've done a lot of traditional therapy type work, they come in expecting that they have to do that. You know, you're going to need to hear my story that I've told 100 times already. You know, and you can see what happens to the energy in the room when they get into that story. And it's such a relief when I say, you know what, we don't have to do that. This is it's a different kind of work, and I'm really more interested in where you are right now. You know, what's your understanding of your life right now? Let's start there. And if we need to dip into the past or the imaginary future, we will. But as often as not, we won't need to. So it's a completely different conversation, first of all. There's a lot more energy in it for me as a practitioner. For the client side, I mean, it's a big mix. And what I love about this is the universality. So it used to be, I mean, my bracket, I suppose, was in the kind of healthcare field, and what's happening now, and it's not through my own intention, it's just happening naturally, is that I'm working with people for whom the healthcare isn't really the reason they're coming. You know, I'm getting people interested for all kinds of different reasons. Business people, people who are interested in developing their coaching practice, even, you know, this kind of thing. And so it's getting much broader, which is really exciting for me, because it's stretching me to work in areas that I don't actually know anything about the content. You know, in the healthcare field, I was relatively speaking an expert. I knew something about that. Often I don't know about the content of the people that I'm working with now, and it doesn't matter, because we're not working with the content. We're working with something that's upstream of that. So it's fascinating to me to see how this is so universal and how it's universally helpful. And that people often get, the side effects that people get are positive spin-offs that they weren't even looking for. You know, they come because they want a business problem sorted out, and they find they're getting along a lot better with their spouse. And they're like, how did that happen? You know, I didn't even order that, you know.
Is it the ripple effect we hear about?
It is a ripple effect. It's symptomatic of the fact that when our level of consciousness shifts, it shifts across the board. It's not exclusive to one particular area of life. It might be more visible in one area, but actually it's changed across the board.
So how might the ripple effect ripple beyond what we know to have some real major changes in this world?
Do you mean on a kind of global scale or still individual?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any difference between the two. I've always kind of known this intuitively, that we don't change the world by going out and trying to rearrange things in the world. We change the world by changing our internal world. That's always what's made sense to me. And that when we bring a different consciousness to the world, we are already in a different world. That to me is the clincher.
That's great, isn't it?
You know, it doesn't have to change. This is the magical piece of this, is that the person can be in what looks to them like a very difficult, very sticky situation. And in the process of having a conversation, and that person getting some insight into the way that they create their experience of that situation, when they get an insight about that, it's as if the situation itself has changed. And you could say, well, has it actually changed or has it not changed? We can't say, because all we have is our experience. You know, this is a problem that the physicists ran up against in the 1920s. Trying to measure the immeasurable and trying to take yourself out of the measurement is actually not possible. So if a person's experience of life has changed, their life has changed.
Yes.
They are living in a different world.
Yeah.
They will experience their relationships as being different, their work has been different, even their commute to work will be different,
Yeah.
you know. And yet ostensibly they're still driving in the same traffic,
Yeah.
still married to the same person
Yeah.
and all the rest. But if you ask them how it is now compared to how it was, everything's changed. And that to me is the super exciting thing about this.
So what's next for you?
I have no idea. I don't
That's
know.
exciting too, isn't it?
That is, and I've kind of lived most of my life that way, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've thought I knew, and then I've learned to be wary of what I think I know is the grand plan for me, because it has its own volition. But what I see is that this understanding has given me it's given me a perspective or a base, like a foundational base, from which it doesn't matter what I do going forward. I know that that's going to come with me, and it's going to continue to inform my work and my life.
Great.
And you can't lose that. You know, there's something about that which to me is very reassuring. That once you've seen enough to be helpful for you and to bring about some shifts for your clients, you're not going to not see that. You know, you're not going to lose what you've already seen. Hopefully, you're going to see more, and things are going to continue to open up. But more and more now, I feel like it's not my business to really know ahead of time what shape or form my outer life is going to take. I'm really not so concerned with that. And it's funny because I find a lot of people I work with, they arrive at a similar point, because they start to see that the only reason why that mattered was because their feeling states seem to depend on it being a certain way. You know, we want life to be a certain way, because then we think we'll feel good, we'll feel secure, we'll feel whatever we want to feel. When you see that that's not where your feelings are coming from, then it's all up for grabs. When you realise you can be okay no matter what, it doesn't matter so much what the external form is. So, you know, you might still have some preferences, but it becomes much more malleable. That's what I find. So right now I'm just as happy sitting with you. You know, this is what came up this week. Okay. And tomorrow I'm going to do a coaching day with a couple who I've never met, and someone else just rang me and said, "Can you do that?" Okay. And, you know, it does have a bit of that quality of just following rather than me deciding. And trusting what comes this is what's going to be needed right now.
Okay. Thank you, Ian.